What's your username is the first thing you're asked when trying to connect with a friend on a video game. Your username is how you portray yourself to the world. It's an extension of yourself, it's the first thing other players notice, and it plays a big part in how you're perceived online. If you live in the West or even in Eastern Europe, your username probably falls under one of a few categories. A made-up word or name like Wub, a historical figure like Michael Whitman, an anime character, a short reference to a meme or an in-joke, or something like XX Tank Killer XX. Off the top of my head, this is generally how the Western world picks their usernames, whether you're American, French, or Russian, or somewhere in between. Character restrictions are a big reason for why most usernames fall under these 5 categories. You can't have a name that's too long, and War Thunder is no exception. When starting a new account, your username must be 16 characters or less, so keep it short and sweet. But with written languages that are far more information dense, like Mandarin Chinese, you can get around this restriction and create a username that's translation is multiple sentences long if you wanted to. For example, I ran across a player whose name was It looks short, right? Just 14 characters. But when translated, it says, "The murderous aura formed into a cloud for 3 hours, and the cold sound spread throughout the night." That is not just a 14-character username. That is a 17-word excerpt from a poem written in 738, which is something that Western usernames just simply cannot do. That brings me to this video's topic, Chinese usernames. What do they mean? How are they thought up? Can I categorize them? And how is this a problem in today's installment of Documenting War Thunder? Recently, I started taking Mandarin lessons online. Around this time, I had just released my last video, Why Do Level 100s Play at 1.0, and was in need of a fresh new idea for my next one. Unsure, I hopped into my favorite jet for RRB, the F-20A Tiger Shark, and started a match. It was late in the night, maybe around 1 AM Eastern time. I glanced around and like usual, for this time of day, half of the usernames were Chinese. I thought to myself, I wish I could understand what they're saying. And that's when it hit me. But how could I possibly make a video out of this? I mean, it would be extremely time consuming and painstakingly difficult to play 100 matches of top tier RRB and log every single Chinese username I came across. So that's exactly what I did for a month. After all the matches were completed, I went through each username and transcribed them into a spreadsheet. This part honestly took the longest because I only had it in me to do maybe 50 names a day. I did it by taking a picture of each player's name, then running it through Yandex's image translator. Opening it as text, I could then run it through War Thunder's player search feature on the main website. Naturally, the image translator got about 10 to 20% of the characters wrong, so I had to look through each name for the wrong characters and use Google Translate's drawing feature to fill in the mistakes. Once finished, I would then run it through the player search again, and if it matched, I put it in the spreadsheet. If not, I did the process over again to fix mistakes and get it right. At this point, with just about 400 usernames, I needed another assistant, one that can actually speak Mandarin. It led me to fellow content creator Kitsune Thunder, better known as Hina. Honestly, I could not have done this project as quickly without him, so make sure to check him out and say Wub sent you. We got into a VC together and knocked it out in just a few hours. Finally, with every username translated, at least to the best of our abilities, I could put each one into a category. Except this final step did not go as easily as I anticipated. See, before the project even started, I wanted to put together some pre-made categories based on what I imagined some of the usernames might be about. Just to name a few examples, I listed anti-Japanese as a category, shitpost as another, and anime simp. But what I didn't realize at the time is that Chinese usernames have a lot more freedom due to their information density, which means they can be a lot more creative with their usernames and thus have more ways of expressing themselves. But what do I mean by information density? I'd like to look at some basic Hanzi or Chinese characters. Ni, this is the character for you. Shi, this is the character for to be. In this case, it means are. Woda, these are the characters for I and of. In this case, it means my. 朋友, these characters together mean friend. So this phrase, 你是我的朋友, would mean you are my friend. If I wrote that in English, it's 14 characters, 17 characters if you include spaces. But this same sentence in Chinese is only 6 characters, because they don't need spaces. It's the same message, but much more condensed. Also, sorry if I butchered that pronunciation, I am still learning. Anyways, with the ability to fit so much information in just a few characters, a 16-character username limit gives them plenty of space to make long, complex, quote-unquote names. All of that to say simply, I needed more categories. So after having a look through all the usernames, I decided to go back and revise what categories I had, deleted some, and added some more. In the end, here are the categories I made and some examples of usernames that fell under them. Keep in mind, I made sure not to count duplicate names when I was pulling the numbers. Starting off, our first category is actual username. This is a username that resembles a more Western approach, something that is short and personalized, like Blazing Feather, Rocket, or Unknown Guest. Anime reference or anime character. This is a username that references anime and anime-style media, or a username that is simply a character's name. One example includes Noobs Don't Dream About Being Shot in the Ass by a Big Steel Needle. It's a reference to Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, and a perfect example of the information density that I mentioned earlier. This name is only 14 characters long. Another example is Where Are the Good Dreams, a reference to a level in Arknights. You can see how deeply I researched these names for the spreadsheet. Another simple example is Toyama Kasumi. She's the main protagonist of Bang Dream. Pop culture reference. This is a username that contains references to popular media, famous people, etc. Some examples include what we translated to Praise the Machine God, a reference to Warhammer 40k, Help Me Mr. Stark, a reference to Marvel's Endgame, and Sexy Beauty Guo Dagong, a popular Chinese comedian. History reference. This is a username that references historical events or people. Some examples include Chiang Kai-shek, and Japan surrendered to China on September 9th, 1945. Yes, that is his actual username. I categorized this one as a history reference because it isn't more anti-Japanese sentiment than it is a simple historical fact. Military related. This is a username that references any topic that is military related. Often these names are just random squadrons, vehicles, or weapons. Two examples include Chongqing 33rd Division Aviation Battalion, and this guy who simply named himself MiG-29. Gaijin shippost or military shippost. This is a username that is a shitpost, joke, or meme that pertains to Gaijin, War Thunder, or military-related topics. Some examples include, attacking from the air is cowardly behavior. Clearly, this guy hates Cass. Or, it turns out you also play War Thunder. And Gaijin, I will burn down your dreams. That last name requires a mini history lesson on War Thunder. See, similar to how we refer to Gaijin as the snail because of its logo, the Chinese player base also has a colloquial term for Gaijin, BVVD. It refers to... I'm not going to attempt that one. The game director of War Thunder, who goes by BVV_D in-game. Some Chinese players simply write BVVD or it's misspelling BWD. Some might write BWD. When voiced out, it sounds like the characters, and some players reference this version by simply writing BWWD. In short, if you see BVVD, BWD, or BWWD, it's a username talking about Gaijin. Okay, sorry for that. I just thought it was really interesting. Let's move on. Joke or meme. This is a username that is a shitpost, joke, or meme, but is not pertaining to Gaijin or military-related topics. An example includes, I was very handsome when I was a kid, or those who play Genshin have no mother. Making a statement / just saying shit. This is a username that is either about a person's feelings in the moment or just saying whatever is on their mind. It's a pretty typical style of username for Chinese netizens. This guy's username is I just like rocking wheelchairs. Does it mean anything? No, not really. He's just saying shit. Another name is if the problem is not eliminated, it will become a bad habit, which is him just making a statement. That category's brother is nonsense or possible inside joke. This is a username that is unintelligible and probably an inside joke that other players are unlikely to understand. One example is, I am the most nimble dog in the mountains. Here's horse tramples rabbit. Do they have any meaning? Possibly. The world will never know. Communist, nationalist, or pro-China. This is a username that resembles propaganda or references the CCP, communist beliefs, and nationalist ideologies. One example is, don't be afraid of strong enemies and dare to compete to win the battle for the motherland. Again, This is a perfect example of a ridiculously long name that's short because of Chinese's information density. Anti-foreigner. This is a username meant with ill will toward another country and or its people. It's the little brother of the last category. I don't want to get my channel demonetized, so I'll let you check out some names in the spreadsheet yourself. You can find it in my Discord server under the spreadsheets channel. Insulting or taunting people. This is a username that is meant to be read as an insult or taunt to other players. I like this one that just says, chicken? Or, if you can, then kill me. My personal favorite category is food. This is a username that references food or is simply named after a type of food. There were surprisingly quite a few of these names, like Dalyuan egg yolk pie, a branded snack, and bag of bell peppers. NSFW. Again, you can check this one out for yourself. Transliteration. This is a username that is transliterated to pinyin without tone markers. An example is Mao de Hao, which we translated to simply mean good hair. The problem with this type of name is it was hard to translate without tones. It's like homonyms, which are words that sound alike but mean different things, like to, and to. Now imagine that every word is a homonym and you might be able to understand why it's confusing. Okay, we're almost at the end, I promise. Next is miscellaneous. This is a username that does not fit any of the above categories. For example, this guy's username is Beijing Institute of Technology. It doesn't exactly fit any of the other categories. And lastly, not translatable, unknown, or unsure. This is a username that either can't really be translated, we don't know what it means, or aren't sure what category it should go into. There were actually quite a few usernames like this, such as number 192 Kabiloda. We aren't exactly sure what it means, much less what category it should go into. Okay, wow, that was quite a lot. And if you made it through that, congrats! It means TikTok has not rotted your brain yet, or you just really like learning. Regardless, you made it through the hardest and most boring part of the video. Now we can get to the fun and colorful pie chart. In this project, we documented 399 names across 100 games. It's time to see what percentage of names fell under each category. In the majority, 17.4% of usernames were either anime references or characters. As for anime character names like Toyama Kasumi or Natsume, you might ask why I included them. It's because I'm fairly confident that these are actually Chinese players, based on being in Chinese squadrons, having the saluting Chinese soldier player icon, playing a vehicle in the Chinese tech tree, and being a Chinese nation main. Every player in the spreadsheet has at least one of these boxes checked off. Behind that, 12% of usernames followed a more Western style of simple and meaningful, with slightly less at 11.1% of usernames is nonsense and possible inside jokes. 7.6% of usernames fell under making a statement or just saying shit. 7.1% of usernames were made as jokes or memes. 6.8% of usernames were references to pop culture, be it celebrities, media, and even excerpts from old poems as we saw earlier. Another 6.8% of usernames were shitposts about Gaijin, War Thunder, and military-related topics. 5.7% of usernames were Mandarin to English transliterations that were difficult to understand because of the lack of tone markings. Having gone over almost 75% of the usernames already, the remaining quarter are pretty insignificant to talk about since it's split up among 9 different categories. Like I said earlier, you can check them out for yourself by downloading the spreadsheet. The link is in the description. Also, if you found that interesting, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it motivates me to keep posting videos. So this brings me to the problem that I mentioned in the title and beginning of the video. Chinese players being able to use non-Latin characters in their usernames isn't a problem in and of itself, but the problem arises from Gaijin's lack of resources and inability to properly moderate usernames that are made of non-Latin or non-Cyrillic alphabets. The solution is simple: expand their team of moderators. Despite being one of the most played games on Steam, which doesn't even count console players, and being a presumably quite profitable operation, I doubt we'll see any expansion of their mod team anytime soon. The reason I say presumably quite profitable is because Gaijin is actually very secretive about their earnings, but let's look at what we know for a second. BVVD, or Vyacheslav Bulenikov, who I mentioned earlier was War Thunder's game director, actually stated in an interview that recently, in February 2024, they set a new personal record, over 250,000 concurrent players. He goes on to say that across all platforms, War Thunder has more than 75 million registered accounts. In an official War Thunder news post from May 2023, it stated that roughly 20% of players have paid money, although it doesn't state a minimum amount. Now if we do a little math, 20% of 75 million is 15 million players who have spent money on the game. Even if we assume they've all only spent $1, which is certainly not the case, that's $15 million in the last 12 years. A minimum yearly earning of $1.25 million. In truth, this number is a lot higher, and it doesn't take a genius to realize that. For War Thunder's 10th anniversary, they released the German Sherman in a limited quantity of only 2,000 units. Each was priced at $60, and they sold out in just a few hours. Being able to make $120,000 at the drop of a hat, and not being the only time this has happened, we know for a fact that these 20% of players are spending far more than just $1 each. The other times I'm referring to are the 5th anniversary, during which 500 were for sale, and the 30th anniversary of German Unity, during which another 2,020 were for sale. That's $271,000 made off of just one vehicle. What is one of War Thunder's major selling points? Having over 2,000 vehicles to choose from, with many being premium vehicles that you have to pay for. So to touch back on what I was originally saying, I feel that War Thunder's problem is that they don't spend enough money on certain areas. We see it with frequent server issues, which recently interrupted one of their Armored Apex esports matches. It seems to me that they are just kind of skirting by and only really invest as much money as needed at that moment, without future-proofing or buffing up their weak spots. That is all to say, I don't think we will see an expansion in their moderation team anytime soon, and particularly not to regulate usernames among a player base that speaks a whole other language. This would require vast onboarding just to handle the sheer number of players, which also means spending a lot more money. Anyways, this video is kind of dragging on a lot longer than usual, so let me start wrapping it up. The project as a whole taught me a lot. At first, I was expecting pretty much every username to follow the same style as what I'm used to, the 5 categories I mentioned at the start of the video. So as I was watching the names be translated in real time, I started to realize I'd have to make a lot more categories because I was clearly underprepared. There actually could have been a lot more data and a whole other category. What I mean is, some Chinese usernames are just a bunch of numbers and letters because it looks cool. It would have been a great category to have. The problem is, there's really no way to tell if they're actually Chinese players. They could be Korean or Indonesian, for example, or really from anywhere. Usernames that are based on random letters and numbers are not solely a Chinese thing, so to keep the data from being tainted, I decided to omit these names, even though it's a really common thing to see from mostly Chinese players. Alright, thanks for watching, and I appreciate you a lot. Yes, you in particular. If you made it this far, I guess have a good day.